Nazis have been in Chile for decades. In 1932, descendants of German immigrants even formed the country's own Nazi party. And after World War II, South America was a Nazi haven. The second most wanted Nazi criminal, a doctor named Aribert Heim, or Dr. Death, who was responsible for the deaths of thousands in an Austrian concentration camp, is thought to be in Chile after spending decades on the run. And though there were Miss Nazi pageants and Nazi youth conventions in Chile in the 1960s, it wasn't until the 1980s, when the skinhead movement started, that neo-Nazi numbers started exploding. The fact that many of the recruits aren't white is depressing to Jewish leader Claudia Kravitz.
Existe un eslogan en contra de los grupos neonazis en Chile que dice: qué risa, qué pena que nuestros neonazis sean de piel morena. Generalmente estos grupos toman a chicos que están desesperanzados y los hacen formar parte de algo y sentirse con el sentido de la pertenencia es lo que los hace unirse.
But recruiting from the brown-skinned masses isn't as hard as it might seem. Some neo-Nazi leaders have dug up a 19th century book about how Chileans, the product of Spaniards and indigenous tribes, are the world's chosen race, which they use to attract new members. And experts say that discrimination is already incredibly common in Chile. Gay activist Fernando Muñoz says it's an intricate mix of classism and racism that deems anyone not rich and white to be inferior, including the majority of Chileans, who are mixed race or mestizo.
A Chile le ha costado mucho reconocerse como un país mestizo y no como un país blanco. Chile es una sociedad que ha vivido siempre como de un espejismo de lo que queremos ser y no de lo que realmente somos. Y nos ha costado reconocernos como un país moreno, como un país latino.
The distinction here is palpable. Walk through downtown Santiago, and the only people you see begging or hawking trinkets are dark-skinned, elderly, or disabled, because they can't get other work. And every week in Santiago, working-class Chileans attack Peruvian immigrants, accusing them of invading the country and taking their jobs. The kids who join the neo-Nazis grow up in an environment of extreme prejudice, but also feel frustrated, left out of the system. So they buy into this xenophobic, nationalist hype that gives them license to beat down people who are even more marginalized. Part of their inspiration comes from late military dictator Augusto Pinochet, who from 1973 to 1990 oversaw the murder or disappearance of more than 3,000 Chileans and the torture of thousands more. The thing is, Pinochet also instituted neoliberal, market-based reforms, which improved Chile's national economy. But at the human level, those policies worsened many of the economic problems neo-Nazis rail against, like poorly funded schools and unemployment, says sociologist Isaac Caro.
Y hoy en día lo que nosotros vemos en Chile, ha habido una privatización, ya que el Estado latinoamericano tenía un importante papel en la economía, en la educación, en la salud, prácticamente va en un retroceso.
The reality these days is that lower-class Chilean kids like Cesar don't really have a chance, University of Chile sociologist Emmanuel Baroset tells me.
En Chile, si se nace pobre, es muy probable que se muera pobre y que los hijos de uno nazcan pobres y sigan pobres. Chile es el país que más desigualdades tiene en América Latina después de Brasil.
Yet now Chile has one of the most successful economies in South America, with exports of fruit and wine, and a copper industry raking in billions per year. So in a story repeated across Latin America, people like Cesar see the possibilities out there, in the news, in the department stores downtown, but know they'll never be part of the prosperity.